Hello guys and gals, and today I'll be reading two creepypastas. The first one will be Death Note is Real, and the second one will be The Pawn Legion. I decided to do two creepypastas this time since my last video was received pretty well. Also these ones are pretty short, so it'll probably take the length of a regular haunted gaming video. Yeah, let's dig into Death Note is Real and see how our favorite video game is real in real life, and how these characters are apparently real, affecting the real life and doing things around the life. Anyways, yeah, Death Note is Real. In my younger years, I was a huge fan of the popular anime series known as Death Note. Not too long ago, I had applied for an internship working on producing the new Death Note drama. So far, despite working on production of the show, I hadn't actually had the chance to view any of the episodes. One day, one of my coworkers told me to deliver a message to my boss. Naturally, I inclined and went to tell my boss the information. When I had reached his room, my boss was just sitting there. He seemed to be crying. "What's wrong?" I asked. I assumed it was something like the ratings going down. The company had lost a lot of money. Just take the tape. Take it and leave," he said, reaching out his shaking arm and handing me a tape. I took the tape, thanked him, and left the office. Finally, I was able to watch it before anyone else. Just before I had left the office, I remember hearing the words, "Mellow Puppet." I had no idea what that meant. Not then, at least. Mellow had been one of my favorite characters in the series, but I wasn't expecting him to make an appearance in the drama, especially not this soon. And Puppet? I remember the character from Nier had some puppets, but it still didn't make sense to me at that time. My usually calm and collected boss didn't seem the type to have a breakdown like that. By the time I had gone home, it was pretty foggy, and I was a little worried on my way back. Recently in my city, there had been a surprising amount of murder cases. And like any other sane person would be, I was a little anxious walking around in the fog at this time, but I managed to safely reach my home and was fortunately still alive. That's like that Portal song, guys. Alright, cut that out. Don't put that in, cut that out. I was pretty excited to watch the drama. I mean, I loved the Death Note anime so much as a teen, and I couldn't wait to see what spin they'd put on it. Switching on my TV, I sat down on the couch and got ready to watch. The first 5 episodes were suspenseful and all around enjoyable. There were a lot of changes from the anime, but I liked it nonetheless. But one of the adaptations that stuck in my mind was Mellow. The fact that they had made his character into a creepy wooden puppet controlled by Nier confused me, but I wasn't going to question their creative choices just yet. I'm sure this had some significance. The next episode was episode 5.5, which was weird. I didn't realize they were numbering the episodes like that. Maybe it was a recap episode? I still heard the voice of my boss inside my head. Mellow Puppet. Maybe my boss had a phobia of puppets? That wouldn't be too out of the ordinary. Puppets can be super creepy, I thought to myself as the episode started on the screen. The episode began with Light Yagami, the protagonist walking down the street, humming to himself. His humming sounded weirdly scared, but maybe it was just me. It took me a moment to catch on that it was, in fact, the anime version of Light instead of the live-action version. Unsure what the creators were trying to show, I kept my eyes glued to the screen when suddenly it cut to L. He was in a room and seemed to be crying, wailing. He was tossing and throwing the items in the room all over the place while Matsuda, one of my favorite characters, sat in the corner, looking terrified for his life. Alright, this guy's fucking based as hell, holy shit. Alright, yeah, cut that out too. This is very out of character for the usually calm and eccentric L. It seemed like it was something that was not meant to be included in the episode. I was still very confused about the plot of this episode as it had no dialogue so far. I was starting to get slightly concerned, yet I kept reminding myself that it was all fictional. Though as someone who was a fan of horror, This all seemed a little real. Must just be good techniques. The screen then went a little static, though I was sure it was just my old TV playing up, and cut to a shot of Nier, in the same position as the last episode he was in. On the stairs, his body looked limp and lifeless as the camera showed him there, silent for about a minute before gradually zooming in. I could now see that his eyes looked like they had been burned out and he was definitely dead. I was very surprised and feeling a little sick. Nier had hardly even made much of an appearance yet. I was expecting a little more character development before they killed him off. Puppet Mello was still sitting next to him and seemed to be singing, although I couldn't make out a word of what it was saying. If anything, it sounded more like melodic crying. It sounded so real I felt like crying myself. It sounded like the actual sobbing of a real person, though the puppet's mouth stayed closed. After that disturbing sequence, I went to stop watching it. I was crying and shaking. Yeah, I couldn't make myself turn it off. I couldn't turn away. This had to be some kind of sick joke, but it wasn't funny at all. The screen then cut to a close-up of the puppet. In the backgrounds, the screen then cut to a close-up of the puppet. In the background, the words "Death Note is real" flashed as a single tear of what looked like blood trickled down Mello Puppet's wooden face. In the background, I could hear quiet, eerie music and screaming. This didn't sound like acting. All of a sudden, the screen flashed the faces of the murder victims from my city, and all the faces of the Death Note anime characters in their final appearances. I jumped back, shocked at the pictures on the screen. All of the eyes on the anime characters looked real, lifeless eyes. I felt like the police was going to bust into my house any minute now and take the tape from me. The tape continued to show murder victims and newspaper reports on their death. In the background you could see the disturbingly familiar face of Mello Puppet and its menacing grin as the sounds of maniacal laughter and screeching played in the background. The text "Death Note is real" kept flashing on the screen, and in my tape player I ejected the tape. That night, I didn't have one wink of sleep and was paranoid the Mello Puppet could just pop up any second. The following day, I entered work and got a few weird stares from people. I hadn't been able to stop crying, so it was unsurprising. I kept the tape in my bag and headed to the office to return it to my boss. When I reached his office, it seemed as if he had stayed there in the exact same position from before for at least a whole day. Next to him was what looked like a bloodstained sketch of Mello Puppet. Then I started to wonder, what if it was real all along? What if Kira is real? What if L is real? As I take one more look at the sketch of my boss, I then walk out as if I was being watched by Mello Puppet and Kira separately. Well guys, that was Death Note is real. You know what they say? L is real. 2342. Or what? Let me look that up. Well guys, that was Death Note is real. And you know what they say? L is real. 2401. The Pawn Legion. I always wanted to play the game Dragon's Dogma ever since I saw the trailers and gameplay footage of it. However, I lacked the money at the time to get it. Normally, I'd assume a game like this wouldn't sell it so fast in my town, but boy, was I wrong. It seemed like everybody in Jacksonville, New York, wanted the game. I waited until about mid-September to try and buy the game at a local Walmart. Luckily, they had just restocked and I had just enough for it. Everything started out pretty normal. Start screen showing your dragon, main theme, etc. I started a new game and spent a bit of time making my guy. It was a mountain of muscles with a large afro and a high-pitched voice, and his name, Wiggles. After that, the first cutscene showed up. Quinto was meeting Wiggles just before the dragon attacks and steals his heart, making him the Arisen. Everything progressed fairly simple from there. I started out as a strider and went out to begin the game with a rook. Showing up as soon as I leave town, though, there was a rather minor glitch. There was just a slight screen tear when the rift opened up. I figured it was a bit of a hiccup with my 360. The game continued normally from there. Then we reached the encampment and the next rift stone to make my pawn. I figured I may as well make her female. I gave her dark hair in a short double ponytail style, dark brown eyes, a little figure, and named her Lo. Her profession at the time was fighter. When the rift showed up a second time, the screen tear seemed to be slightly worse than before, but I ignored it still. So we continued on battling the Cyclops, bandits, wolves, and other unsavory types, including the Hydra. So off we went to Grand Sword, fighting harpies and the occasional screen tear. They seemed to be getting worse as we got closer to Grand Sword. Normally pawns would be telling the player how to handle a foe or something about the area, but not mine. They kept saying, "'Tis a terrible place we head to." They sounded almost scared to venture further, though we had to push on. I wanted to see how the game made out when we get to where we needed to. As soon as we passed the gates in the city, there was no cutscene with Mercedes, just an empty Grand Soren. My main pawn, Lo, was with me. The rook seemed to have disappeared. The capital was now a ghost town, and the screen tears had ended as well. I was curious as to where everybody had gone, so I explored and eventually received a quest, The Darkest Depths. The quest was simple enough. Go to the Pawn Guild, its location marked on my map. I went there, though I wasn't quite ready for the sight I saw. There were multiple pawns, all named a Legion, curled on the ground dead or otherwise not moving. It was an odd sight for sure, though what was even more odd was the fact that I was not connected online, yet these pawns showed up. Stranger still, the rift stone was supposed to be there, but seemed to be broken, as if it was in use by someone. It had a small ring radiating from the center and outwards. I don't know why, maybe simple curiosity or who knows, but I continued on down this rabbit hole. I got to the quest area and the gate was open for me. My pawn warned me that there were unknown dangers and started heading in before me without telling her to do so. There was a short moment of hesitation on my end as I followed after her. I had no idea what to expect, only that it wouldn't be good. What I entered was not the dungeon, but rather the rift. It seemed different. Again, I was offline somewhere with the Legion pawns, all of varying levels and jobs, and all with the name Legion. I noticed my pawn was among them. She seemed different as well, just staring at me no matter where I moved. I used the riftstone to get out of there, but it took me straight to the bottom of the Everfall, a dark place under Grand Soren that's home to many undead and other monsters. All of the doors were open, but everything was unavailable for hire or any type of dialogue except for the pawns, and they always showed up in groups of 2 or more and kept repeating one phrase over and over. "Master, we are waiting," all in unison. In a monotone voice, it was unnerving to say the least. But I pressed on. I was going up the path, seeing more and more pawns or voices all saying that one phrase, though once I left the Everfall, I saw what happened to the residents and creatures. They were the first victims of the Legion. Many of the monsters lay defeated or with bits of them chopped off. The villagers and soldiers lay on the ground dead or turned to stone. How I didn't notice that until now is a mystery to me. Maybe the Legion hid it from me to lure me in, or I don't know. All I knew at the time is that I had to get my character out and fast. The Legion was slowly moving in towards my character. Normally I would have tried to fight them, but I didn't because my quest log told me to run, nothing more. So I ran as fast as I could out of Grand Soren. It was nighttime though, which was unfortunate since that meant I could see only as far as my lantern allowed, and all I could hear were the voices of the Legion telling me they were waiting. But for what? I don't know. I know I should turn the game off as soon as the freaky stuff started, but I wanted to see what would happen if I continued. I kept Wiggles running as fast and as long as he could, but since if I stopped, it seemed the Legion would get closer to me and each touch from them inflicted some form of ailment, from poisoning to burning to drench. I had to use every item in my inventory just to keep myself from dying. I continue the mad dash to the encampment. The valley between the encampment and Grainstorm was littered with the corpses of soldiers, either crushed by rocks or killed by a wild beast. The path that normally led to the encampment was blocked up by the Legion, just staring at me with those lifeless eyes, always getting closer. The night didn't seem to be ending either. I made a dash for the only place I could, the fort in Witchwoods was blocked off by more of them, the eradication site. I'd ran out of options. I couldn't go into the water since it would kill me. I couldn't go anywhere either due to the legions of pawns just behind me, and I couldn't fight them. There were simply too many, and they were too powerful. The Legion crept closer, leaving me no room to run and nowhere to hide. If my game was going to end, it couldn't be to those things. I made my choice. I turned my character towards the ocean and had him run as far as he could until the brine caught him and there was no struggle on his end. He looked almost happy to be caught by that mist. He soon respawned in Casadres, his hometown. It was daytime. The villagers were miling around as usual. My pawns were with me as well, telling me to be careful of the ocean as the brine could take you to strange places. I couldn't play any more of the game after that, strangers, so I turned it off and took it out and put it away. I don't know what happened. I don't know why the game acted that way or how it happened. All I know is that it happened every so often. I can still hear them saying they are waiting. So, ladies and gentlemen, those were the creepypastas, and these are my opinions and thoughts and things. So, my first opinion is on Death Note. Let's go over that first. Death Note is real. To clarify, the first creepypasta we did. Yeah, it had a really cool concept. I like the idea of Death Note being real, and this guy just figuring it out by getting a VHS. That's kind of neat. But I mean, there's basically no proof that like it's real in the creepypasta. Like, no reason to believe what happened wasn't just some weirdo in the studio that like killed people or whatever, or didn't even kill people, just made a weird videotape for no reason and then handed it to the boss secretly, and not fucking like Mr. Death Note or whatever. There's no reason to think it was actually Mr. Death Note that made that. But yeah, a cool concept though, so Mr. Writer, please work on it. I would love you to see either remake this somehow, because yeah, I think it's cool. I think that could be a neat creepypasta. Just like I said, just needs a little work in. So keep it up, dude. I want to see what you do. So since those are my opinions on the first creepypasta, let's move on to my opinions on the second creepypasta that we did, called the Pawn Legion. Dragon's Dogma creepypasta. Yeah, it was pretty good. I liked it. The whole Pawn Legion thingy, that's a cool concept. I enjoy that. The execution was pretty alright. Of course, there are a few things that could be expanded upon, just making more stuff happen, I guess, instead of it, like having it build up, I guess I should say, instead of having it just bam happen. Have a little build up, go to Grand Soren, things happen in there. I mean, I guess I should clarify build up with the Pawn Legion itself, because there was a bit of build up, but more so the Pawn Legion acting up, like maybe seeing an NPC named the Legion, maybe seeing a few, you know, as the game goes on, seeing more and more, and then eventually the people in Grand Soren just disappear. Instead of just going there and they're not there. I think that would add greatly to it. Yeah, I feel like it'd add greatly to it, add to the spooks, make it a bit more interesting, maybe give a motive to these fellas. Maybe something that's not like, oh, we want to kill all the people, but well, I mean, it's fine if they want to do that, but I'm just saying, like, add a motive. It's a little subtle, maybe not outright them saying it, but hinted at through actions in the pasta. That would be pretty cool. Yeah, overall, I gotta say, these two creepypastas, pretty alright. I like them. Obviously can be improved a lot, but as it is, I would definitely say these pastas are pretty decent. And I really, really like the concept of these two, which is why I'm going on about this for a while. Please improve them. I think that would be cool. Speaking of cool, I'm gonna go, guys. Bye-bye.